What's up, guys? Dusty Shaw Fitness here to share something slightly different. I've talked a little bit about my past, struggles with incarcerations, starting at just 14. I caught my first case at 15. I was off to Department of Juvenile Corrections, where I spent a few years, missed high school, never been to a high school dance a day in my life. Got out right before I turned 18, caught some gun charges, and even though it was right before I turned 18, by the time I was charged and processed, I would just turned 18. So after the fact of the crime, allegedly, they still chose to try me as an adult and use my juvenile record against me, so that instead of looking at a 0 to 1 or 1 to 5 years for each gun charge, it was a minimum mandatory 5 years at each gun charge. And I had 9 of them. So yeah, you just do the time. 5 years times 9, almost 50 years. That's a life sentence to an 18-year-old kid. So I've never been a suicidal person in my life, but that is the one time that I thought to myself, man, this is just too much. Like, say I go do the, nearly 50 years. How is that worth the, decade or two I have left when I get out, if I even get out? Because you never know. No matter how well you behave, it's other people and other situations that can get you. So I've been found a new therapist. I'm a big proponent in therapy. And we've been digging into, I've been diagnosed with CPTSD, and something I've known for a while. It's hard to find a good specialist therapist that is good at dealing with CPTSD. Thank God to our soldiers, particularly in the special forces, who have, through their sacrifices in the GWOP war over these past 20 years, we have been able to really step up the therapy and psychoanalysis approaches to PTSD and complex PTSD. But I just want to share with you guys some of the stuff I went through. And I've never mentioned this stuff as a way to make it look cool, like how tough I am, look how resilient I am, what I've been through. Because as I just told you, my first reaction when I walked in front of that judge at just turning 18, and he tells me minimum mandatory 5 years, and I start doing the math times 9, and I'm sitting there thinking, almost 50 years, that's life, and I think, I don't know if I would have ever carried out with it or not. It's the only time I ever felt suicidal in my life. It just seemed to be the only thing I could relieve my anxiety somewhat, is knowing that there was a way out. Because the subculture I was in, punks and skins at that time, was a zero tolerance drug policy. I never tried drugs, I didn't drink, so I didn't know that you could cope with substances. So the only way I knew out was, to take myself out. And I wasn't planning out going alone. I was very bitter and angry that, I had been falsely accused of something and set up by someone that was supposed to be a brother of mine. Another learning lesson there, right? It always comes from someone, those closest to you, that you think you can trust. But I just want to tell you, maybe we'll start on a series on the intricacies of incarceration. And, I recently did a really graphic visual of my overdoses, which came later in life after I tore my knee in my last professional fight. And I exposed some really personal, vulnerable content with you, and let you see what, fentanyl, benzo overdose looked like. And now I'm gonna, share with you some really close, dear to me, vulnerable things that I went through incarceration. And so I figured the right way to do this is to start out with the juvenile. So, grew up in the punk rock skinhead scene. That was the music I liked. That's what I was attracted to. As much as I love punk rock music and still love it to this day, unfortunately, by the time I got to it in the 90s, it become really liberalized and feminized and just anti-white and just so many against all the values that I believed in. So the only difference with the Skins is the same sounding music, but instead of the self-deprecating, self-loathing, hate all white people, hate your country, all that, just weak beta male stuff, the Skins had the same sounding music, but they were actually about something. They were about nationalism, not about hatred of anyone else, just about loving your own culture and trying to advance your own culture. So that appealed a lot more to me, and I switched to that, and I began to get political ink. And I can never forget the first time I dropped down at my first full-on juvenile correctional center. This was nicknamed Bloody Beaumont. All right, so first I went to Merrimack, which is, you could almost say it's like a daycare, and that's where I met who I've wrote about in my book and also talked about in my biggest interview with Big Herc on Fresh Out, Bobby Sopko. He was my CO at Merrimack, and he seen me hit someone. It was my first time ever knocking someone out, and I don't know how much of it was luck or whatever. It was the first time ever. I was shocked myself. I was scared to fight the guy. I was nervous because I didn't have a lot of training at that point. Well, actually I had zero training, just street fights like any kids, any men, boys. But he seen it. And the dude, everyone thought the dude that I did it to was a hard dude. Like I said, I was nervous before fighting him. I didn't want to fight him, but you have no choice. And I knocked him clean out. It's the best feeling ever. Bobby gave me a Mike Tyson book, and he told me about the other CO over at Crossroads, which is a step down program. And he said, link up with him when you get out, man. If it's something you want to do, you have potential. Fast forward many years of incarceration later. And after I got out of doing my adult time, I go to MMA gym, and what would you know? My first day there, I ran into Bobby Sopko, my old CO that got me into it. Now, to come from full circle, I had to fight many years through the amateur ranks, and when I went pro, which I have pictures I'll attach hopefully on the thumbnail, and Bobby actually cornered me in my first professional fight. So it was just really awesome, full circle. I really knew that's what I was meant to do. But going back, when I went to Merrimack and my first juvenile experience, I remember the guard that dressed me out, African-American gentleman, and seemed real cool to me, but everything's a poker game in there. He looks at my political tattoos. He goes out to the day room while I'm still finishing getting dressed out and alerts the entire day room. All right, I'm in the 15 to 18-year-old bracket. I just turned 15, so I'm not the biggest guy in there. All right, and whites are weak and victims largely in Virginia. As much as I have no reason to say that, doesn't make my look people good. I'm just telling you how it is. And so I go in there and I sit down after he's told these people that, I'm this and that, and, a white this and a white that. And so I go to pull up a chair at the only table I see with some white dudes. And they were probably less white than anyone else there. They were the epitome of self-loathing, black culture appropriating, just chumps. And I sat down, and the white dude, and there's black dudes all around, and just a little caveat here. All through my years of being about my race, especially inside, that's who I stood with. Back when I had very offensive, everyone's so easily offended these days. But back then, all the offensive tattoos I had, and I've never, ever had even a verbal, let alone physical altercation with a non-white. Never had issues with any blacks or Hispanics. Had friendships. It's always some weak-ass liberal white dude that is so scared of other races that he would want to make an attempt to say something to me like that's going to get him some clout, even though it just makes him look weak. But Anyway, those are the dudes that are always getting extorted and weak, is all the white dudes you see trying to appropriate and copy black culture inside. Anyone that's been locked up knows this. But I digress. The point is, I sat down, he asked me, he said, do you have a German cross, an iron cross on your chest? I said, yeah, I do. He said, what's that mean? Where'd you get it from? And I said, well, I got it off the Nazis' belt buckles. I got it off independent skateboard tracks. I got several different ones for different reasons. I was a skateboarder growing up. I'm of German heritage. So he said, oh, so you did get it like a Nazi symbol. I said, yeah, why? You got a problem with it? He said, yeah, before he could even explain himself. You don't talk about that stuff. I just stood up, nailed him, cleaned him right out. None of his boys helped him, of course. And but the thing is, the blacks seen the way I carry myself, and as the time went on, they seen I never said anything racist. I never said anything disrespectful. In fact, the only few relationships I had were with Hispanics and a couple, the older black dudes, whoever the most solid dudes were. Real recognizes real. It's like I told them, I don't feel any different about my race than you feel about yours. Had no problems with them. It's always these weak, liberal, beta white males that feel like they have to, just push their white guilt and try to make up for what society has made them feel so weak and lessened for, and it's just pathetic. But so that got me shipped out to up north, what we call it Beaumont, bloody Beaumont. This was the most notorious, brutal juvenile system, certainly in Virginia, if not much of the East Coast. And that's the Blood Kings, and this is my first exposure to real street gangs, not wannabes, like real ones. And all the white kids in there were getting extorted and jumped and even SA'd, if you can't figure out, assaulted in the worst kind of way. And that was horrible to see and hear as a juvenile. But again, it's all in how you carry yourself. Thank God I'd wrestled my whole life, and because of Bobby, got some boxing skills before I was sent upstate. So once again, because I carried myself, took care of my own, you have to show you're able to display more violence than anyone else to where you're not worth being a target. And even though that was the much more dangerous place, they've since shut it down because of how dangerous and unlivable it was. There was no air conditioning. It was just brutal. Don't wish it on anyone. But I did get in one altercation there. That was not really too noteworthy. Just one-on-one. Once again, though, a white dude that was trying to rally up some blacks about my stuff, and they came and told me because they were cool with me. Little did he know. But I'll give you a sneak peek to when I got transitioned to the adults. And when I first went in, Southampton Receiving Unit, Gladiator School, 25 years and younger with 25 years of prison time or older was typically their main demographic. The housing unit for diagnostics, for where they decided to send you, was right there. And that place was off the chain, man. No order yet. And I guess reputation had followed me once again. And long story short, another scenario, some white dudes tried to approach me, so I put the hands on them. And I don't want to sound like Superman, because I'm not, but when you take a highly trained fighter that's fought and wrestled his whole life, I don't care how tough you are, you're not going to be able to beat them. A lot of these dudes right here are real weak, especially the white dudes. But anyway, I'm not going to say which gang they were affiliated with, but they wanted to get some revenge. And they tried to approach me from behind and stab me in the back. I got the scar I can show. And they didn't penetrate deep, and it almost seemed like the person that did it was sent on that mission and was scared to do it. So I spun around, and he was so nervous and scared that he actually dropped the knife. You could hear the metal when it hit the ground. And so I didn't even need to pick the knife up. I just kicked it away and proceeded to, handle him until the guards separated us. but I put a real good beating on him. And again, not bragging, that was self-defense. And but I just want to tell you, to be going through that level of violence from 15 years old to, you know, that happened at 18, you know, so up through my early 20s, while everyone else was going to high school, dances, beach week, and, you know, college, and just all the things I missed out on because of my actions. I shared this with you because I don't want any of you younger ones to fall down that trap of feeling like you need to prove yourself through acts of violence or antisocial behavior. There's better ways. Thank God Bobby Sopko gave me that Mike Tyson book. And even though the seed didn't fully germinate right away, it did, in developing the skills, and that's what kept me safe through all those years of going to the worst places. But it didn't fully germinate until I got out and was like, I never want to go back and live through that hellhole. And that's when I got out, I went full 100%, full force, ran through the amateur ranks. I finished at 8-2 with a championship belt. And then I went pro. History's, you know, just to think where I came from to where I went, all over Bobby Sopko, a caring CEO that cared enough and seen just enough talent in me to hand me a Mike Tyson book and gesture and offer to go train with the CEO, and how that changed the course of my life. So I'm trying to do right now in this video to any of you out there, especially young adolescents who are struggling. This is me paying it forward, what Bobby Sopko did for me. If you're having trouble, parents, if you have kids in trouble, I also work with youth with therapy, specifically ABA therapy. All right. And if you have a child, or this is an adolescent that's in trouble, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I will be more than happy to help you, help mentor you, and guide you in a way. Maybe fighting won't be your way. Maybe it'll be a sport. Maybe it'll be something artistic. But we've got to find a passion that will validate you. Because I promise you, the street and gang life will not validate you. It may have the short time, but the consequences and the price you pay for, robbing Peter to pay Paul is not worth it. So, anyway, guys, just wanted to put that out there, extend my offer, and I hope I really hear from you. I will not charge any youth that's in that situation. I'm looking to save as many lives as I can, because I can only keep what I have by giving it away and paying it forward, like it was so freely given it to me by a great gentleman, by Bobby Sopko. Shout out to you, Bobby, and I'm here to pay it forward. As always, like, share, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and stay tuned. This was just a warm-up. I'm going to get more and more out lavish with, all the war stories you like to hear. I don't like going into it, but it is entertaining, and if that's what I got to use, is those traumatic events I went through to hook you on the entertainment side, to give you the good information and how to get out of it, then I'm willing to share it. Just do me the favor and like, share, and most of all, subscribe to the channel. Share the videos, to whoever may need them. Thank you. Love you guys.